All right, so we're going to be moving into the border. You're going to see here that I have my 5 rows of front post and back posts and half double crochets on the sides, and I'm actually going to be working along the edge where the buttonholes are. And so for our corner we are going to chain 2. So if you already chained 1 to turn your work, just chain 1 more. And now we're going to place a single crochet where our last half double crochet was, and then we're going to place 4 more single crochets here. Okay, so 1, 2, we'll go here, 3, and 4. Okay, and now all the way up to where our stitch marker is in row 4, leaving us with 3 rows, we are going to be placing 2 single crochets over the last double crochet of every row. And a standard rule of thumb in crochet is that a double crochet is the same as 2 single crochets in height. And so we will be doing that 53 times total. So let's do it together once. We're going to go here for 1 single crochet over that double crochet, and then a second single crochet over that double crochet. Now, to get you used to where you're going to be placing your single crochets, a nice little tip about the buttonhole side as well as the buttons is going to be 2 single crochets will go where the buttonhole is. So 1 and 2. And then you'll have 8 single crochets between the buttonholes for a total of 10. So that'll be a really great way for you to figure out where you're going to place your single crochets, so that when you get on the other edge where the buttons go, it'll be a lot easier and you'll have a little bit more of a rhythm of where you're going to place your single crochets. So go ahead and go all the way up to where your stitch marker is in row 4, and then we will do the last 3 rows in the neckline together. All right, so at this point you should have 111 single crochets up to the corner, chain 2, and we're going to place 3 single crochets leading up to where our neckline is, and then we're going to be working in the base of those row 1 stitches, and see how clean that is. Where we worked into the bump, we're going to be able to just work into it like it's a whole new row. So let's go ahead and place 3 single crochets here. We're going to go 1, 2, and you can work over this tail. It doesn't serve any purpose moving forward. So 3. So now what you're going to do is work 51 single crochets, working into both loops, 51 single crochets across the neckline. And so a great rule of thumb is this first single crochet that I just placed, I'm going to place a stitch marker there. That way I know where to count backwards to. So go ahead and place 50 more single crochets, and I'll see you in a second. All right, so I've got my 51 single crochets along the neckline, and my last one did go into that chain 3. All right, so now we are going to be placing 3 single crochets up to where our stitch marker is. Now I drop down, because we're going to place our first one over this chain 3, I drop down to where this little loop is here, and I place my first single crochet through that. Okay, and then we're going to place 2 more. Sorry, my hands are a little bit stiff. So 2, and we're going to go 3. Okay, now go ahead and take your stitch marker out, because this is going to be row 4 that we're going to be working into first. And place that stitch marker in the last single crochet here. Sorry about the hair, guys. Y'all already know. I don't know why I'm apologizing to my friends that use some crochet hooks. Y'all already know about that hair. All right, so now you are going to be placing 2 single crochets over the last double crochet along this second edge here for 53 rows, and that's going to take you all the way down to where your half double crochet rows are, and I'll help you with those. And then we'll talk about the bottom edge. But from where this stitch marker is, you are going to place a total of 111 single crochets down this edge as well, okay? But I will help you with those last 5 stitches. Alrighty, so we are going to be placing our last 5 single crochets. I need to place one more before we get started. So we are going to place 5 more single crochets here. 1, and these are going to go over the half double crochets. 2, 3, 4, and then 5 is going to go into the base of where that first half double crochet is. We're going to chain 2, and now beginning in the top of that first half double crochet, we're going to place 197 single crochets across the bottom edge. All right, so I've got my 197 single crochets. In the corner, chain 2. I'm going to place a single crochet. I'm going to chain 1. I'm going to place a single crochet. Now I'm going to do that a second time in that chain 2. Single crochet, chain 1, single crochet. Now we're going to work along the edges and neckline with the buttonholes and the buttons, and you're going to do this next repeat part a total of 140 times, but we're going to do the first 2 together. So we're going to skip this first stitch, and in the next stitch we're going to do the same thing we did at the corner with a single crochet, a chain 1, and a single crochet. Let's do that again together. We're going to skip the stitch, we're going to go into the next one with a single crochet, a chain 1, and a single crochet. So go ahead and do that to the next corner another 138 times. All right, so working into this next chain 2 for the next corner, we're going to place a single crochet, chain, and a single crochet. Let's do that one more time in the chain 2. Single crochet, chain, and single crochet. Now, working along the bottom, we're going to skip this hidden stitch and we'll place a total of 98 of our little repeats. So we'll place single crochet in the next stitch, chain 1, and a single crochet. So you'll go ahead and skip the next stitch and do your repeat in the following stitch for a total of 97 more times. All right, so to wrap up the vest, we are going to be slip stitching into the top of the first single crochet of our corner. Ooh, don't drop your yarn like me. And then you will fasten off and weave in any tails that you might have for the vest. And we will move on to the sleeves. All right, so it does not matter if you are working on the right sleeve or the left, okay? You are going to be using, and you'll see here, this is the edge, the second stitch marker from the edge on either sleeve is where you're going to be starting and attaching your yarn for row 1. So for the right sleeve, I'll be using this blue stitch marker, and for the left sleeve, I'll start with this green one. We'll be working over the shoulder and then the armpit for row 1. Alrighty, row 1 of the sleeves, you're going to see that I have my hook in the same space as the stitch marker, and this is the second stitch marker from the edge. And I've got my slip knot. We're going to slip stitch there. We're going to chain 1. Okay, and in that space we're going to put a double crochet. Now I am going to go ahead and drop down here just for a little bit of a tighter look, which is still the same area. So I'm going to do that double crochet there. Okay, now you are going to chain and place a cluster in the chain space a total of 25 times, and that's going to take you to the other side of the shoulder, and then we'll be working the armpit together. So chain, skip your cluster, and place a cluster in the chain space 23 more times by yourself for a total of 25 times, okay? All right, so I've got 25 chain cluster in the chain spaces. We're going to chain one more time. We're going to place a double crochet in the same space as the stitch marker. Okay, so now you should have 2 double crochets, 25 clusters, and 26 chains, okay? So now we're going to be working over the chain, what is it, a chain 9 or a chain 11? I think it's a chain 11. And we're going to straddle row 27's clusters that were placed over the chain 11, okay? So we're going to chain, and we're going to yarn over. We're going to place our hook before the cluster. We're going to yarn over and pull up our loop, yarn over and pull through 2. We're going to yarn over and go after that same cluster. We're going to yarn over and pull up our loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. We're going to do that a total of 9 times, but let's do one more together. We're going to chain, we're going to yarn over, go before the next cluster, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over, go after that same cluster, yarn over, pull up your loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 3. So go ahead and do that 7 more times by yourself. All right, so this is what it's going to look like. You're going to have 9 of these straddled clusters. Okay, we're going to wrap up this row with a chain, and we're going to slip stitch to the top of this double crochet. And just like in our vest, we're going to chain 1 and turn our work. Okay, so all right, I turned my work. We're moving into row 2 here. And we are going to be working over the armpit for this, for the first part. So what you're going to do is place a cluster in this first chain space, okay? Now, we are going to chain 1, and beginning in the next chain space, we're going to yarn over and place 7 clusters across here, straddled, okay? Let's do this first one together. Okay, now we'll chain and we'll do the next one together. We're gonna go right before it and right after it. Okay, so do 5 more by yourself. All right, so we've got our original cluster, and then we've chained and straddle clustered a total of 7 times. Okay, so now we are going to chain 1 and place a cluster in the chain space for a total of 27 times. Okay, so work over the shoulder with a chain cluster in the chain space 26 more times by yourself. All right, so we're going to wrap up this row with a chain 1, and we're going to slip stitch to the top of our very first cluster, and we will chain 1 and turn our work. Okay. All right, we're moving into row 3, and I will make a note that moving forward for this entire sleeve section, when you place a cluster, it's always going to go in a chain space or between 2 clusters, okay? And that's just how it's going to be. And then when we get down to the cuff, that's when things will change, but that's not for a while. So we are going to place our cluster in the chain space, and we're going to cluster afterwards a total of 28 times across the shoulder, and then we will move into the armpit. So go ahead and cluster in the chain space followed by a chain 27 more times. All right, so I've got 28 clusters and 28 chains. We are going to start our straddles in the next chain space, and we're going to do a total of 5 for this row. Okay, so go ahead and do 4 more chain straddles by yourself. All right, so, and I said it backwards, it's straddle chain, but we've got our 5 straddle chains. So you should have a total right now of 33 clusters and 33 chains, okay? And so now we're going to cluster in this last chain space, followed by a chain, and we're going to slip stitch to the top of our first cluster. All right, and chain and turn your work. All right, we are moving into row 4. So we are going to cluster in the chain space, followed by a chain 2 times. So cluster, chain, cluster, and chain. And now, beginning in the next chain space, we're going to straddle 3 times, followed by a chain. I think I said it better this time, so we'll just do these next 2 together. All right, there's a second one, and a third one. Alrighty, so now, sorry, the table's catching the piece. It should look like this. It's kind of starting to pyramid there at the armpit, okay? So then we are going to cluster in the chain space, followed by a chain, a total of 28 times over the shoulder. So go ahead and cluster chain 27 more times by yourself. All right, moving into row 5. You can see there that my magic knot's right there. But we are going to be placing a cluster in the chain space, followed by, it's always a little bit weird, followed by a chain a total of 29 times, working over this shoulder. So go ahead and cluster in the chain space, followed by a chain 28 more times. All right, so I've got 29 clusters and 29 chains. We're gonna straddle this middle straddled cluster, okay? We're going to chain 1, and then we're going to cluster in the chain space, followed by a chain 2 times to wrap up this row. And here's the second cluster, followed by a chain. We're going to slip stitch to the top of this first cluster, and we're going to chain and turn our work. Oh gosh. All right, there we go. So I'll see you for row 6. All right, moving into row 6, which will also be all the way up to row 11. So after this row, I'm going to see you for row 12, okay? So row 6, though, we're going to cluster in the chain space, followed by a chain a total of 32 times, okay? And then we will slip stitch to the top of the cluster, we'll chain and turn our work. So go ahead and do that all the way up to row 11, and I'll see you for row 12. Alrighty, we're going to be working on row 12, which will take you up to row 21. So I will, after this tutorial, meet you for row 21. So now our repeat, we're going to place a cluster in the chain space, followed by a chain, a total of 3 times. So we've done it 1, let's do it 2 times, and a 3rd time. So we've got 3 clusters and 3 chains, and then we're going to place a cluster in the chain space. But we're not going to chain after it, okay? So your repeat is going to be cluster chain 3 times and then a cluster. So to begin our next repeat, which you will do this 7 times by yourself for a total of 8 repeats, you're just going to go directly into the chain space. There doesn't need to be a chain to separate here, okay? So I will see you for row 21, and I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't or you need clarification, drop a comment down below. All right, so moving into row 21 through row 29, we are going to place a cluster, followed by a chain 2 times. So that's 1 and 2. And now we're going to place a cluster 2 times. So 1 and 2. And that's all your repeat is. So you're going to have cluster, chain, cluster, chain, cluster, cluster. And so go ahead and I will see you for row 30. All right, moving into row 30, we are going to, for our repeat, place 4 clusters. So 1, 2, don't go between there, 3, and 4. Oh my gosh. This blue yarn's a little bit slick. And then we're gonna follow it with a chain. So you'll have 4 clusters with a chain. And then you'll repeat that all the way around, and then I will see you for row, I believe it's 39. Hold on, my computer turned off. Yep, row 39. Alrighty, I'll see you in a little bit. All right, moving into row 39, which will take you to row 45. We are just going to be placing 32 clusters around the ring here or the sleeve. And so go ahead and do 31 more clusters by yourself. You'll slip stitch to the top, chain and turn your work like always. And so I will see you for row 46. All right, moving into row 46, we are going to be straddling row 45's clusters. So we're going to yarn over, go before the cluster, yarn over, pull up our loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, go after that cluster, yarn over, pull up your loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 3. So you will do this all the way around, and you'll have 32 straddled clusters. Okay, for row 46, you will slip stitch to the top of the first straddled, and then you don't need to turn your work, but you're going to do a row of double crochets for row 47. So I will meet you for row 48. All right, so we're going to be moving into row 48. You're going to see that I have my straddle row here, and then row 47 I did those double crochets. So for row 48 through 52, that's 5 rows total, you are going to yarn over and do a front post double crochet. And then you're going to yarn over and do a back post double crochet. Okay? And we're creating the cuff here. So do that all the way around. You don't actually need to turn your work anymore for the rest of the sleeve. Okay, so just go ahead and repeat that for row 48, and then I will see you for row 53. All right, so row 53, you probably saw down in the comment section, is just going to be 32 single crochets all the way around. And so what I do to wrap up the sleeve is I'm going to slip stitch 3 times. I find that that's kind of a rule of thumb in anything involving fiber arts. So we've got 1, 2, and 3. Now, give me a second to get my yarn off my ring. I'm going to pull that a little bit. I'm going to give myself some tail, and then what I'm going to do is pull this all the way through. I'm going to sew it back through that same stitch that I did my 3rd slip stitch into, and then I will weave it back and forth underneath those single crochets like 3 times, and then I will cut off the remaining tail. And so then you'll do the other sleeve, and you will just have to move on to the pockets and sewing on the buttons. So thank you so much for watching this tutorial, and I'll see you in the next one.